We're really excited to have you on as our first Twister.
Thank you.
Actually,
the honor is mine.
And the place we're here actually is really picked with some thinking behind. And we felt like holding this kind of discussions about the tech scene in Israel and being in a bar, in a coffee shop, because this is where startups are built. This is where people raise funding. This is where people come with it. You see tons of people, not the last few months, but starting again, people come with their laptops and sharing their passion and their new innovation. So this is why we thought, but this place specifically has another twist, and it's called Par Derrière. So there are different meanings of the Par Derrière.
Let's focus on one meaning.
One of them being what's behind. And this is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Is really talking to leaders like you, Ron, and understanding what's behind the success of the companies you work for in the past. And you have a long list of what they did very differently than others that explain their success. So that's really the twist. And we call this web series
Twist&Taste.
And Taste, because if already we are in a coffee shop and in a restaurant.
In the Mediterranean.
In the Mediterranean. We want to also taste and drink some great meals. So the second part we'll ask on what's his favorite dish and what's behind the show, the
Spoiler alert, it's already on the table.
It's on the table, true. And so we'll start, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Tania Amar. I'm the founder and CEO of CXP Consulting. And what we do is building outstanding storytelling for startups and tech companies.
And I'm Samson Lewin, I would say in English, or Lewin, whatever the language. And I'm the founder of bluelemon.io, which is a creative performance marketing agency. We basically help SMBs and startups scale and grow thanks to performance marketing and trying always to have a twist in whatever we do and a creative approach.
Awesome. So, tell us about yourself.
What about you?
Ron.
Sure. So, Ron, I work at Liquidity Capital, which is a venture debt fund. Perhaps I'll explain a little bit more what that means, but essentially we invest in high growth startups all over the world. The company's focus is in most geographic locations we have some kind of representation, including obviously in Israel. I've been an entrepreneur and I've been a marketer most of my career. I started out as venture capital. I worked 3 years at Giza, which is a very well-known, or was a very well-known, I don't think they're active anymore, venture capital. I then had a bunch of companies, some of them venture-backed. Been a co-founder in an ad tech company.
So what from that experience, maybe just starting to feel you, what would you say the one thing you learned that helped you, move on to your next?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's so many things I've learned that we would need too many hours, but I think the takeaway for me is understand your market and understand your persona. What is the needs? Who are you selling for? What's his pain? What are you solving for them? And as my career has transitioned more into marketing roles and strategy roles, that is something I constantly remind myself of. What are we solving?
Does it mean that the issue with that company, I don't know if issue is the right word, but you started with the product rather than the persona in the need?
Or it just seemed like this would be a really, really cool thing to do that's going to change potentially the market. And by the way, this trying to understand what the market and the persona needs are is something that I kind of taken with me wherever I go. I mean, after my startup didn't go anywhere significant, I went to go work at SimilarWeb. I also VP of Solutions, which is basically the product divided into specific solutions for specific personas. And one Saturday,
persona again.
Yeah, one Saturday, I'm going over some nice decks that you had made, and I left some comments, and then he popped up in my messenger. This was like Saturday morning or Saturday noon or something. I was also sitting at a cafe working, and
didn't
that's
know
how we
that.
got to talking. And like, I'm like, this guy knows his stuff.
Good way to introduce your talent.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Show me the...
So I was VP of marketing and demand gen. I was VP of solutions, and then I took a leadership role at a company called Tania, which I was the CMO, and that's a company it's a SaaS B2B company selling really interesting solutions for ERP for ERPs.
Yeah.
And I
they
did
know
that-
a lot about personas. I mean, there are...
Yeah, so I headed product
focused.
marketing. I built the whole team out there. Did the rebranding
Great
with
branding.
the trail. Yeah, I did the whole rebranding. I walked in, I think it was the first or second day of my job, and I walked in the CEO's office, and I told him, listen, our whole brand, the messaging, everything looks tired. Like, I want to redo it, and I want the best company. And he's like, he kind of wrote it off like, you're in charge of your own budget. You lead
Do your
it.
thing. Yeah.
Do your thing. And he thought I was going to bring him some project that cost like not that much that we can carve out.
He didn't know.
And I met with a dozen companies, and I said I met with a trail, which you worked at, and like this company is like.
So let's say
seamless.
branding. I like the topic about branding because it's always what we see as marketeers, that the thing that needs to be done. I've been doing rebranding of companies I went through like you said.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's really hard to convince the management to invest
Yeah.
the money, the time.
Yeah.
So what, again, an advice, what would you say,
Yeah.
tell a CMO coming to a company, maybe a new junior
Yeah,
marketer?
that's a great question, and I think that let's start where it starts from. It starts from, first of all, especially here in Israel, a lot of people rose from the demand gen, performance marketing, lead generation kind of world.
Right.
It's a very data-oriented country.
Very data oriented, and CEOs and founders are data driven and
Show me the results.
what's the
I want
result?
the
Like
results.
if we're going to do this, how many leads are we going to get from it? How many
also in the
MQLs?
culture. It's
We
also
also-
very much in the culture, right?
And we
I
all
want
for it,
results
right?
now.
Let's
but I
strong,
think that's perpetrated or was perpetrated by the fact that Google, not to mention too many names, but the big platforms, marketing and ad tech platforms, basically educated everyone that you need to measure everything.
Yeah.
And how many leads you're going to get from Google is measurable. How much revenue, how many opportunities you're going to get from Google is measurable. And we have all the products to help you do that through the funnel. Today, I think people are starting to understand a lot more the value of the brand.
Yeah.
And where does the person start from before he came to Google, right? Not everything is intent driven, where you just capture intent. There's part of demand generation is capturing intent. People are naturally searching for products or services. But demand generation is also creating demand, creating a name. And there's so many companies in Israel now that do it really, really well.
And that's not measurable?
It's not initially measurable. So a lot of times the attribution, especially nowadays when attribution has become so much more difficult due to the constraints of the ecosystems themselves. Cookie dying, privacy, do not track apps, all these things. It makes it a lot harder to know where the user came from, where the prospect came from. Right. But there's a lot of value in creating a category and becoming a category leader and a brand within that category, so that people naturally come to you no matter what the channel. Right. A company that does this really well, I think, is Gong.
Yeah.
Revenue intelligence.
Yeah. Revenue intelligence. Yeah. Like.
As simple as it sounds, right?
Yeah, right.
Everybody's
Yeah.
like, wow.
And
but
SimilarWeb
okay,
too.
yeah.
Marketing intelligence.
Yeah.
So the simpler, the better, right? We also sometimes see
you
on
want
concept
to be
that-
top of mind. I mean, we were talking before how, I'm in all these groups, and when someone needs a solution for something, they'll write in the group, we use this here, right? Or this is the solution we took, or this is the service provider we have, or the marketing stack we have. And when you read that and you hear that, you go to Google and you search for it, and then it looks like Google bot gets the attribution, but it starts with your name, and that's why for me, for example, marketing is
Reference
also
marketing, right.
marketing is also customer success,
Yeah.
because the power of referrals and the power of
influencer marketing is also
influencer marketing, yeah.
starting.
And so I think even the evolution of like my own career and what I try to do is how can we build a brand where we're the leader of this category. And by the way, it has to do with product too. Like we need to build a sales is much marketing is much harder, and sales is much harder when the product doesn't deliver. So if you have a really, really great product, it makes everything easier.
Yeah, but
right?
Product alone doesn't sell, right?
Right. And you start out with a story, you start out with a need before the product is finished, and that's why you got to get it down really, really good, because later it's harder to.
So
to
that's
fix.
also a struggle that I found. You know, when you want to talk to entrepreneurs that are starting and they're so busy on the product, but then we hear the marketeers saying, let's start talking about it, right? Not talking about the solution, but talking about the space, positioning our leaders. And it's really hard. I had this discussion with international PR agencies that told me, you know, in the US, in the UK, it's natural. The companies are going out before they even have a solution in the lab.
I think,
until they don't have the whole thing packaged with 10 partners.
I think that's going out with your story, with the marketing, is not a bad thing if you have a constant feedback loop that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Like, find your product market fit, tell the story, make a proposition.
Like you need to be listening all the time.
And
you need to be.
And constantly iterate until you get fit, because later it's much harder to fix, or it's going to be just really, really painful. I mean, product market fit is not binary. Right, and that gray area is where the problem lies, right? Because you're good for one persona, or you're good under some circumstance. There's some kind of compelling event that when you can sell at, but around things become more difficult. So at least if you're going out, you understand kind of where you lie, right? And generally, like, we can think of many companies that have clear product market fits. Like, I don't know, like I'll take like Uber or something like that, or Netflix.
Not sure they found it easily though. Like they did search for it at some point, right? Like
but once they got it down,
and
that's why, by the way, the evolution of startups here, especially, but in the world of like B2B and SaaS, is that they go from R&D product companies to slowly marketing and sales companies. Because once you have it down, you want to capture as much of the market as possible. So then you double down, and more resources goes to.
But look, we're in a good place. I just want to say we are marketeers and we are big, big.
But as a marketeer, like it's critical to work with products, and it's critical to work with sales. Like the number one function that I think is only now starting to be valued for how important it is product marketing. Like, product marketing understands the persona, understands the value, knows the messaging, can write the pitch, understands go-to-market motion, pricing, packaging, all those things. Like, if you're marketing or selling a solution or service, and one salesperson is not doing it well, then generally you let them go, or you find some way to fix it. But if everyone is not selling at the rate that meets the company's objectives, then something else is.
That's not salespeople.
That's not salespeople. Who are you gonna ask? Who's the next person, right? Generally, product marketing or product, right? Product and product marketing are generally the two most important people in the room, in my opinion.
Maybe we go back to liquidity because we're really curious.
You were talking about categories.
What's
Liquidity's category?
Liquidity was founded by a couple of entrepreneurs who've had problems with capital raising, not necessarily being able to raise the capital, but first of all being diluted, because every time they went to go get capital, they sold part of their company when they didn't or shouldn't really need to in every case, and the time and speed it took to get to that line. So they kind of went and said, how can we build a platform that is able to analyze companies for different investor personas to make quick decisions. Now, what happened is that essentially that was the thinking, that was the positioning. We're going to make a fintech company that solves something that we understand about and have been burned
Yeah.
ourselves.
Selling to investors.
Selling to investors. And to prove the thesis, we'll invest some of our own money. Like we'll put in some capital, and we'll start a fund, a venture debt fund. Now, venture debt is different than venture capital because no equity it's non-dilutive, meaning you're not investing for a stake of the company.
Lending money, right?
You're giving credit or debt to a company in order to grow.
That's the twist, right? I guess.
Yeah, the twist is that it became so because it was substantially a better product than any other venture debt deployment product on the market. It grew substantially, and now we've deployed close to $500 million for companies all over the world. Like
And that became the main activity of the company.
that became
now?
the main
Amazing.
activity. It's essentially
When there's
a
so much
venture
money
debt.
out there.
It's
I
a
mean,
number
this
of venture debt funds
Yeah.
in different geographies, where the black box or the secret sauce is the ability to understand a company's investability very, very quickly. So we give term sheets within 24 hours.
Amazing.
So are you planning to are you planning to sell the technology at
No.
some point? So it's not anymore,
That's
right?
off
No.
the table.
No.
It used to be the plan used to be like a platform.
There's so many. The platform can be applicable to banks. It could be applicable to any type of limited partner that is looking to deploy capital at and understand the risk factor, because debt investing debt is different than investing equity. Equity looks for the upside. Debt looks for the downside, right? So what is my risk exposure here
Right.
versus what is my opportunity exposure? How big can this be? So there's different thought processes, but
You answer both, right?
yeah, we answer both, but the whole premise here is not to dilute the founders. Company just needs quick capital to grow,
But I
right?
think dilution is even a bigger pain than the.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
super
mean, again,
important
we're not-
to give money
we're-
quickly,
we're not-
but I
we're
think
not-
the liquidity.
We're not necessarily replacing venture capital. It's just there's a certain type of product, a capital product. For growth, you need at a certain phase of the
Which is
company.
not the same need, right?
It's not the same need. For example, if you're a startup that has a premise, an idea, or a product, or even in the initial revenue phase, it still has to be proven, and that's less fit for raising debt, for raising credit. That's more, you're selling kind of a vision of where your company's going to be and what the potential of the market. That's more fit for VCs.
Yeah.
But there's some companies that just want to take on a new market. They already have a lot of sales history.
or
They're in
move to
growth
the next
mode,
phase, yeah.
and they just need working
Scale.
capital,
Yeah.
and they need it quick. And they don't want to be bogged down by all the analysis and the time it takes to do that with normal channels. And that's where liquidity
Comes in.
comes
At
in.
what point did you make this bold decision not to sell the tech to anyone?
Just got by doing the same things that I spoke about. We went and we spoke to people, and we also naturally see where the business gravitates and where the growth initially kind of grows. Like if we're going to be a B2B SaaS platform, a fintech platform, then we need a different company. We need sales. We need product marketing. We need customer success. It's a different company. But the need for capital is, I mean, we came to the market with a product which is quite unique, and companies who are in need of quick solutions just gravitated. So if you have the feedback loop and this is working, let's see how it goes. And
that's amazing agility from the management, right? To
Yeah.
see, okay, what's
Yeah.
working now. This
Yeah.
is what the market is, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this.
yeah, and by the way,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that.
They won't do that later.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, our thinking is eventually to create a marketplace for debt products, not even necessarily in different verticals too. Like we can do corporate debt. The technology is applicable to many verticals.
So how's your team? What's the impact on your team right now? How does it look like? Versus
My
what it
team
would
is
look
very
like.
young.
Yeah.
My team is very young, but it's built it's built differently than if we were going to have a SaaS platform, right?
So
I
if
don't
you-
need to support a large sales team.
What would it be if you had SaaS versus now?
One, if I had, I think if it was SaaS, I think it would make my job a lot harder because I have to build out marketing strategies that attract two different types of customers: companies that need capital and companies that need a platform for assessing companies. Here, I'm mostly today focused on just bringing demand, meaning getting our name out there so that companies know about us. Oh, the biggest factor to our success is just awareness. How many people are going to know that we offer this because we're a young company, company, and people need to hear about
And
us.
the differentiator, right? Because there's so many companies.
There's
bringing funds.
the founders can get confused,
Yeah.
right? And they shouldn't deal with it. Like they need to focus on building companies and,
Yeah.
and selling and
So you're not building a data-driven like marketing team, mostly like a storytelling-driven marketing team.
it's a
rather
lot
than-
more. It's gravitated to a lot more of the awareness
Mhm.
factor to it.
Okay, two last
So-
questions, right?
Yeah. So future. So how do you see the evolution of the company in the future?
We definitely want to become a marketplace for companies that are looking to raise growth capital and investors in different forms that are looking to invest capital in safe yielding
In liquidity,
opportunities.
right?
It already is
It
an
already
investment
is, yeah.
company. I mean, I think what you meant to say is that what started out as a technology platform B2B SaaS company has, in the fintech space, in the financial technology space, has eventually become an investment company. And the answer is it already is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
So-
it shows, yeah.
Yeah. No, I was saying it shows innovation. I mean, what we want to ask you, we want to ask our guest every time the same question. Like to summarize the discussion. It looks like you have it there, right there. Is what is innovation for you in one word?
Innovation is progress. I mean, I think that if you're theoretically innovating, but it's not bringing you to a place that is better than where you started,
I love that.
then
Yeah.
then what for? It's just
Yeah.
changing the blocks around but staying in the same place. So for me, innovation is whatever makes you progress.
What's the innovation with liquidity? I mean, how do we progress and where do we bring the market to? What does liquidity bring? Where does it bring us to? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully liquidity will progress the market. It's not just how will liquidity progress, but how can it change the dynamics of the market so raising capital is more democratized.
It looks like it will progress the role of the entrepreneur. You said that they spend I see my clients, they spend so much time going and talking and building that investor deck and
Yeah.
talking to all these investors,
Yeah, of course.
why
And-
they should focus on their
And
company.
yeah, if it's
So
not
it's
them,
changing the role.
yeah, and if it's not them, it's someone on their team. But someone's spending too much time
Yeah.
Looking
when
for
they
the
should
money.
be.
Often it's the CEO,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
management team, not even the CEO, the whole management team
Yeah.
is in
They spend their time looking for the money rather than actually
Yeah,
help, like making sure the
building
company
a
grows.
company.
Yeah,
It's-
building a
it's-
company.
exactly. Each minute they're not doing that. It's
in layman terms, you don't want to invest too much time looking for a gas station,
Yeah.
right? You need gas in the car.
That's it.
Right?
Exactly. It should be like
and
done
and
quickly.
and that's the analogy that I like, because you just need to if the numbers are there, meaning if it works, then you just need to pump the car and get moving,
Yeah.
and
love
not
that.
spend too much time on how do I get gas.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Time for tasting. Your favorite dish.
Okay, so in Hebrew you call it le gefen, and it's essentially grapevine leaves, covered or wrapped in either rice or meat, sometimes both. I love this dish because it's classic Mediterranean meal. You can eat it with your hands. It's both like it's savory, it's lemony, it's salty, sometimes sweet, even a little. It's just got a lot of flavor. It goes well with yogurt, of course. It goes well with
Chablis.
like chablis. And the only problem with it is that you can't have just one.
Yeah. Hopefully it's going to be enough
So,
for all three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you know, in many families here, you make it at home, but there's a lot of great places that make it.
Where does it come from originally? I'm not sure.
That's a good question. It's definitely Mediterranean, Middle Eastern Mediterranean.
Yeah.
I think it's a Balkan dish.
Balkan?
Yeah, I think it's a Balkan dish, if I'm not mistaken. But generally, you find it in the Mediterranean, Middle Eastern region. You know, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and then going down to Greece.
So
that's where you get
You
it.
should be finding it in Israel.
Yeah,
Everything Mediterranean always comes down.
because that's-
so I bought some in a place called Amid that's north of the Shuk. This place is amazing. It's like
Kitchen, right? I mean,
Amid yeah, exactly. So
small
it's like
kitchen. Yeah.
small.
Oh,
You have something. I think they are the best in Tel Aviv.